Welcome to Follow the Content Leaders, a podcast where we want to learn how leaders, entrepreneurs, CEOs, coaches, and consultants have built their businesses and exactly what role has content played in their strategies. Hello, everyone. Good morning, and welcome back to a new episode of Follow the Content Leaders podcast. Today, we are here with Jennifer Nash. Good morning, Jennifer. How are you?
Good morning, Monica. Thank you for having me. I'm good, thank you. And how are you?
Good. I'm good too. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us. Jennifer is the founder of PRHub, and she's also a coach who helps female founders amplify their voice as thought leaders, a lovely mission, and elevate their brand as through authentic storytelling and strategic PR. So tell us a bit more about yourself, Jennifer. Who are these female founders that you help and how you help?
Thank you so much. That's a great introduction. Yeah. So PRHub is pretty much a platform for female founders. It's geared towards helping female founders gain visibility for both their brands, but also to enhance their reputation as thought leaders. Because we all
Mm-hmm.
know that female founders are the most underrepresented and underreported when it comes to PR opportunities. So my passion as a
Mm-hmm.
woman who's been underrepresented myself as a minority in the UK, but also as a minority in boardrooms, even in my native country, Zambia, where I was born, women were told that they're supposed to just be seen and not heard. So it's been my personal ambition to just make sure that I help women amplify their voices so they can be seen, heard, and empowered to be the best versions of themselves as experts in their field.
Amazing. Yeah, I love that mission. Completely support it, of course. I was in the corporate world for a long period of time, I'd say, and also felt the underrepresentation as a woman in that field. So, very, very important mission. And tell us a bit more what got you started in this world
Yeah.
and how long have you been doing this?
Yeah, so just following on what I just said, like when I was growing up in Zambia, obviously it was a very patriarchal society
Mm-hmm.
where women were off their voices, our voices were often stifled. We were told to our places are in the kitchen and not anywhere else. And if you wanted to express your feelings, to speak out about anything, especially in the boardrooms, but even in the local community, you were told that a woman's place is in the kitchen and they're supposed to be
Mm-hmm.
silent and not heard. And so, growing up with that feeling of being stifled really got me wound up, really. So, when I moved to the Western world, first I moved to the USA. In my mid 20s, I found that the Western world was more liberal. It allowed women to speak and be able to be themselves. I
Mm-hmm.
found that very empowering. And fast forward, moving from the United States to the UK, I moved to the UK in 2010. So I've been here for 15 years. And
Mm-hmm.
that's when I was in the UK, that's when I went into the PR industry. I started out as a temp in a PR agency that was being run by two very amazing women. And I
Mm-hmm.
really loved what they were doing. And I said to myself, when I grow up, I want to be just like them. So I knew all along that I was always advocating for women. I was always advocating for social justice. But I didn't at that point in 2015. I didn't know until I worked for that agency that public relations was the best tool to use if you wanted to amplify women's voices. So, putting my personal experiences together with my passion for writing and advocacy for women, I decided to start my own PR agency that represented women. It didn't start out as PRHub. It started out with so many other different names. I was still trying
Mm-hmm.
to figure out exactly what it was that I wanted to do. But before I even got to PRHub, I ended up going back to university to train in public relations and advertising. And
Mm-hmm.
so I was, yeah, I was a mature student. I went to Westminster University and studied public relations and advertising. Unfortunately, I graduated in the middle of COVID in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
That meant that I couldn't practice right away what I wanted to do. So instead of just not doing anything, I started a show called The Wired Women. It was a
Mm-hmm.
YouTube show on my channel called Spotlight Net TV. So I started
Okay.
interviewing women from all over the world to find out more or less as what you're doing, Monica, to find out
Yeah.
what it was that was made them leave their 9 to 5 jobs to start their own businesses as female founders. And it
Mm-hmm.
was through that that I built awareness and more passion to represent these women, because I started finding out that even though they were experts in their fields, in their previous jobs that they did in corporate, most of the times they were either the minority or they were just not given the microphone to speak up because
Mm-hmm.
their male counterparts were more likely to speak to the media than themselves, even though the women are the ones that had the expertise.
Yeah.
So I wanted to find a way of getting these women to have the microphones in their hands. So fast forward to 2021, I founded PRHub, but it wasn't, I don't think it was called PRHub until last year. So I started just helping women just get more visible. I
Mm-hmm.
initiated the Global Ignite Vision Awards in 2021. And then fast forward to that, I've since had just helped women one to one in public relations and getting them in Forbes magazine, Entrepreneur magazine, and any other publications that I found was great for them to tell their authentic stories in. And so PR Hub is more of an ecosystem platform that actually brings all of that together.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so to help women understand and utilize the tools for awards and public relations to enhance their voices and to enhance their visibility globally.
Yeah, I mean, you've kept yourself busy, that's for sure. But I
Tell
love
me.
how you described the story too, and you mentioned these two women that you worked for, right? And they were important role models for you, and how that had an effect on then what you went on to do, which I think sometimes our lives are built around these experiences. So you were lucky enough to go get those role models and kind of dig deeper into what that brought for you. And what
Absolutely.
is your favorite part then of helping women doing or getting better at public relationships and getting this microphone on them to them?
Yeah, that's a great question. My favorite part is just unpacking their power, putting them into what I call a power posture. Because a lot of women come, they're timid, they're like, oh, I'm not good enough, or what is commonly known as imposter syndrome. I don't
Mm-hmm.
like using the word imposter syndrome because it is okay to have an imposter syndrome to a certain degree, because that means that we're getting ourselves out of the comfort zone. So for me, I think that I like to think of women who are already in a position of excellence, but they are excellent in what they do. But I would like to move them from that position of excellence into their genius zone, and
Mm-hmm.
that kind of like, so giving them that tool to understand that it's okay. They've been all these years, they've been operating in their areas of excellence or in their zones of excellence. But what can they do more to become geniuses, or to acknowledge that now they can be more than what they've been?
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm not working with women who don't already know what they're doing. I'm working with women who already have plus 3 years experience in their areas of expertise. They have already done so much, but they just don't know how to package the experience that they have. So I sit down with them to understand their story. I start by first, I still interview them, even though I don't interview them on Wired Women show, but I
Mm-hmm.
interview them in the back end. And then I give them feedback on that interview, how I see their body language, or even the actual verbal language, the words that they use when they're describing
Mhm.
themselves or they're presenting themselves as an expert. For example, if a woman says, "Oh, but I am not so sure," and then they flick their hair, so that's a nonverbal. They flick their hair behind their ear, and or they
Mhm.
shift, and or they cross their arms, and things like that. They're nonverbals, but also just the words that they use that are
Mhm.
disempowering. So I help them to start removing the words that disempower them, but instead I encourage them to adopt words that give them that power posture that they
Mhm.
need, so that they become not so much that they have negative male energy, but I want them to still use that female energy, but in the way that men use their energy. Because
Mhm.
men are very confident when they speak. Men have certain tools in their back pockets that they
Mhm.
use that women tend to shy away from. And so I kind of compare and contrast and help women to use those same tools that men use, but with a feminine aspect or with a feminine energy. And that's
Mhm.
how I help women handle that microphone with ease and flow, and in a more from a more feminine point of view than a masculine point of view.
Yeah, so interesting, right? And we don't need to be or try and get the same energy as males. We just need to find our energy and then put it in the spotlight, which I think is exactly what you're helping your clients with. And I love it. Yeah, so I'm interested now to understand a bit better about how you've built your business and what part has content played in the building of that business. So if you've used content in any way, I imagine you have because you are a PR agency, but how has that looked? Which platforms have you used the most?
Yeah, that's a very good question as well. I do love content creation. And I think that the most important aspect of using content, again, my keyword is authenticity. So
Mm-hmm.
creating content that is very authentic, that lands well with your target audience, the people that you're speaking to, that just means that creating content that is relatable, but at
Mm-hmm.
the same time making sure that your content is timely, what I call jumping on the bandwagon. So you can use content in two ways, and my favorite platform obviously is LinkedIn for digital
Mm-hmm.
content creation, because LinkedIn, obviously, as you know, Monica, is the number one and the largest professional platform that anyone who wants to be seen seriously and to be known as a thought leader in their areas of expertise, bless you,
Thank you.
would want to be on LinkedIn. So,
Mm-hmm.
how I have used LinkedIn is twofold. I use my own native content that I create from myself
Mm-hmm.
based on my own thoughts for that week or my own tips. I give away some tips that I can give away about public relations, but more concentrated with thought leadership. That's a type of
Mm-hmm.
content that I create because I want to help women pack up some tools, as many tools as possible about becoming or utilizing what they know in their business to
Mm-hmm.
assert themselves as thought leaders in their industry. The other type of content creation is pretty much mostly unutilized by a lot of women and female founders, is about engaging in other people's posts. So
Mm-hmm.
engaging in the comments, and articulating yourself and giving advice to other people in the comments, scrolling through those comments and finding the common threads and the nuggets that align to the knowledge that you have, and being helpful and giving tips and or responses to people's areas of query. Maybe they're
Mm-hmm.
asking a question, they're asking the main content creator a question that you probably have an answer to. That is
Mm-hmm.
another way of making yourself visible and helpful to other people that might not otherwise be already connected to you on LinkedIn. And so I find that I grow my network through that way, by connecting with people in comments and or being visible in a conversation thread that is going on LinkedIn. The final but not least is also sharing pieces. Personally, that's what I do from a PR perspective, is sharing
Mhm.
content that has been shared in publications and or
Mhm.
other areas of content. So I call this content syndication. So taking
Mhm.
content from another platform, for example, Forbes Online, and bringing that content onto LinkedIn, but not just posting, copying and pasting it, but putting your own thoughts on top of it before you share. That is
Mhm.
commonly known as opinion editorial, or in
Yeah.
short, it's a POV, a point of view. So putting
Mhm.
your kind of knowledge and your own opinions on top of the content that you want to share is another best form of content creation. So those are the three main ways that I create content.
Yeah, very good. I love it. I think it's the first time someone talks about engaging in this podcast, and I love it because it's so important, and it's a very easy way also to grow at the beginning when your audience is maybe a bit smaller, because you get to profit from the reach of these other big creators that already have a lot of people reading them and maybe don't have enough time to answer to all the comments, but kind of utilizing that in your favor is a very, very good strategy. And of course, it can be hard because giving your opinion in public, especially when it's against maybe sometimes the opinion of someone else, for as women who don't like so much conflict or avoid it, usually can be limiting at first. But I don't know if you have any experience in that, or some, or you agree. I can see you nodding, right?
Yeah, absolutely. The part that I'm noting is that a lot of women find it intimidating, right?
Mm-hmm.
They do find it intimidating and scary, the fact that it's in the open. But there is a way in which you can still participate in this way and still avoid that kind of confrontational way of commenting. So don't just comment for the sake of commenting, but also don't comment with the intention of disagreeing with other people.
Mm-hmm.
That's not helpful, and that is always going to lead to unwanted or
Yeah.
unintended consequences. So the best way how to take part in these conversations, and I am very privileged to tell you that I've never had any confrontations with anyone on social media ever. I've
Mm-hmm.
been on LinkedIn since 2006, and I've been on other social media platforms for probably as long as that as well, 2013, where thereabouts. I have never been trolled by anyone. I've never been involved in any social media disagreements or
Mm-hmm.
bad discussions. And I've often wondered, and I've looked back at my posts, and I've always wondered, how come? How come I've never gotten in such very bad situations with anyone?
Mm-hmm.
And I think the common denominator that has come up from my own content creation has been being intentional when you comment. By being intentional, I just mean that, first and foremost, when you are going to react to someone's comment, you have to be human first. And this is very
Mm-hmm.
important aspect of a trait of being a thought leader. You have to be human first. Treat someone as you would want to be treated. Just imagine that the question or the response that you're about to give someone, is that how you would want to be treated, or how you'd want someone to react to your post?
Mm-hmm.
That's question number one. If you answer that question with a yes, you want to be human first and you want to be treated exactly that way, then go ahead. And then checking your thermometer, your temperature first. Take a temperature
Mm-hmm.
check. Are you feeling hot-headed about that particular topic? If you're feeling hot-headed, it's probably not the right time to respond. Trust me, I've found myself wound up by people's people's comments, and I want to go straight in and respond because I'm feeling this type of opinion about it. It's probably not the best time to do it, so walk away from it. And
Mm-hmm.
especially as women, we could be in the middle of a menstrual cycle, or it could be in the
Mm-hmm.
middle of a menopausal hormone cycle. So that's probably not the best time to respond to other people's opinions either,
Mm-hmm.
because you're very emotionally hot headed at that particular time. So those are the two no times to respond. But the final bit, if and when you find that you are neither menstruating or having a menopausal time, but also you find that you are neither feeling hot headed and you are calm and collected, start, like I said, by being human. Say things like acknowledge that other person's concerns, have empathy. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
by acknowledging, I mean have empathy, relate to them, acknowledge them that their point is just as valid. Once you've
Mm-hmm.
acknowledged that and you've shown them grace, you've shown them empathy that their point is valid and you can understand where they're coming from. So you say, Monica, I see where you're coming from, but, or and, you always
Mm-hmm.
want to then add and but, you'll find that people will be more compliant to
Mm-hmm.
your comments
Yeah.
because you first acknowledge them and now you're telling them your different point of view, because it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to agree with everything that everyone is saying. You're not a
No.
doormat, but the fact that you're acknowledging other people, and this is a tip that you have to use even with a journalist when you're being interviewed by a journalist, because
Mm-hmm.
if you are constantly just showing that you're better than them and you're telling them that their idea is not valid, they must listen to you, even during
Mm-hmm.
that interview with a journalist, it's going to create conflict. And so, in order for you to avoid, I'm one person who hates conflict of whatever kind.
Mm-hmm.
So, probably that's probably the reason why I always go with being human first
Of course.
and having empathy.
Yeah, and that does not mean, as you said, that you do not need to voice your opinions if they're different. You can voice them, but just in a way, as you said, while being human and being genuine and trying to bring value to the network. Because what I've seen is that then, both when you receive comments or you share comments like this, that's where the true connection actually happens. Much more than when
Absolutely.
you just agree with everything. You're like, okay, yeah, thanks, perfect, glad we agree, etc. That's okay, it's great, but it's not gonna ignite any meaningful conversation. Whereas when you actually disagree, but in a healthy way and in a genuine way, then a conversation that's interesting can happen and can bring much more value both to you, to the person you're commenting, or the person that's commenting to you, and to the audience that's reading those comments.
Absolutely agreed. And I like the fact that you use the word ignite because that's one of my key words in my back pocket. I love just igniting change, igniting a conversation and having that discourse that brings meaningful change. Absolutely agree because
Hmm.
otherwise it's boring. If you're just
Exactly.
agreeing for the sake of agreeing, then you're not igniting any change. You're not,
Hmm.
and being a thought leader at the end of the day, Monica, is being exactly that. You igniting change. You're the one that leads with thought that is different from other people.
Hmm.
You're not just ticking the boxes. And as I used to do with the Wired Women, it was about challenging the status quo, really,
Hmm.
not just for the sake of doing it.
Exactly, yeah. Lovely. So we've come to an end. I always like to end these episodes with a question that is a bit selfish because I just love to read content, but I also love to read books. So I always like to ask my guests if there is any book recommendation that you would like to share with us.
Oh my gosh, I wish I had known about this question first because I actually don't have the book with me here, but there is an amazing book that I'm reading. It is by, oh gosh, Kadini, I think his name is. It's about
Hmm.
influence. Can I come back to you with that book so you can put
I
it
think
in
I
your
have it
notes?
right here.
You do have it.
I
Okay,
do think
awesome.
so.
Okay, what is the book?
Is it this one?
Yes! Oh my gosh!
Good.
Oh my
So
gosh,
no
yes!
need to come back. We have it.
That's the book I'm reading. Literally, I just love that book. So, yes,
Nice.
oh my gosh, I'm saved by your grace.
Yeah, it's a great recommendation. Very, very good book. I have
That's
it
the,
here very handy because it's very useful to actually reread it. So I'm glad you're enjoying
yes,
it.
yes, that's the book I would recommend. I just got it 2 weeks ago, but we've been moving houses and everything, so it's not on my desk anymore. I don't know actually where it is, but
Yeah, so thank you so much for joining us today for the book recommendation and for all your insightful thoughts. I hope you go on to have a lovely day, Jennifer.
It's been my pleasure, Monica. Thank you so much for having me. I've enjoyed this conversation.
Perfect. Thank you.